legal bestie, attorney Simone. I am live from the courthouse. I've been upstairs listening to testimony all morning, which is why I wasn't going live earlier with you guys. And the prosecution is really wrapping this on up. So the person on the stand currently is Diddy's last personal assistant. So it was a guy named Jonathan Perez. He was his personal assistant from 21 to 24. As you join, let us know where you are viewing us from. Hey y'all. Oh yeah, shake that Astroglide, y'all. Astroglide's in my purse. Because I want to get to it. I want to give you guys an update. I want to give you a facts. And let's talk about what the prosecution is proven so far. Now, before we get to that, it is true. Kanye West did show up. So Kanye West was here. And apparently Kanye West was irritated that he was not in the main courtroom with Puff, where Puff could see him. He wanted to be here to give support. I think he also wanted to be here to let y'all know that he was the guy, him and his wife are the ones who had the freak off party that Miss Thing attended. Okay. So he was there. That was the freak off man where Diddy was upset because old girl went to a freak off party without her. How dare she? She went to a freak off party without her. Okay, we got Katy, Texas, Beaumont, Missouri. Hit that like as you come on in. Hit the subscribe if you have not already. Hey, Stephanie from Dallas. Listen, okay, so what all so the witness that's left this morning was an investigator. The investigator testified to the weapons that were obtained, the drugs that were obtained. Y'all, there was even like there was a photo where the substances that were obtained from Diddy's bedroom, like right above it was like a photo of Joyce Myers. Who knew? He just loves Joyce Myers. I bet she would be so entertained to know that. Maybe I don't know. I don't know. Maybe she could send him some sermons from prison. I don't know. Um, but yes, so Kanye West was here. He wanted to go into the main courtroom with the family. They said no. Fun fact, I saw Quincy earlier today. Oh, he looks so handsome. He looks just like a model. He was dressed so high end. I saw him in the cafeteria. And I looked over and I noticed he had a purse, y'all. Quincy had a purse. And his purse was a Bottega Veneta, the very purse that Jane was complaining about. Jane said she wanted a Chanel. She didn't get no Chanel. She got a Bottega. Well, looked like Quincy got a matching purse. Well, go figure. Anyway, I'm going to let you guys come on in before I start breaking down what has the prosecution proven so far and what's lacking, what's missing. All right, so you guys are coming on in. I told you about Kanye. Yeah, Kanye, they actually created their own courtroom for Kanye to watch it. It was called an overflow room. They created an additional Kanye overflow room. What that means is because Kanye was here and because Kanye was here witnessing testimony, he was only here for like 20 minutes. That means no, he's not testifying. You are not allowed to be a witness. Assuming that he went on in that room, it was alleged that he went in the room, he was in there for only like 20 minutes. If that was true, if he watched testimony, then that means no, he won't be testifying for the defense. Because if you are on the witness list, you are not allowed to observe the testimony of any other witness out of the concern that out of the concern that you'll hear it and that it'll impact your testimony. I did not see Kanye. Others did. They actually asked me to scoot over to make room for him because they were thinking he was going to come into the room that I was in, but he did not. All right, let's talk about what the prosecution has or hasn't proved so far. Where are we at? People are asking me, what are my thoughts on how this case is going? Now, here's the thing. The prosecution is about to rest. If they don't rest today, they're going to rest by at least Wednesday. They have something called a summary witness. She's actually supposed to start Monday, which is generally the last witness. Okay, your summary witness literally summarizes the evidence, the witnesses that you've had to date, even the most important evidence, documents, text strings, those kind of things that have been put in. Um, uh, 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 yes. What was you wearing? You was wearing all white, like a baby angel. He sure was. I am. I'm staying in town longer. Thank you to the Panty Fund. Thank you again for those that helped out. It's MISS Red Wine on Cash App for the Panty Fund, or you can just send me a super chat right here. Now, this morning there was an investigator that took the stand. That investigator, he testified to seizing a number of weapons. Now, what was interesting is all the weapons that were seized, they were all in a security room. However, every weapon except for one had a serial number. Which one didn't have a serial number? The deadliest one. It was an AR-15 that had special bullets that could pierce body armor. That could pierce body armor. So the question was, why would you need that? I don't know, but I think that's supposed to go to the fear that the RICO enterprise can create, right? So now I'm going to talk about, we're going to go count by count. There are 4 counts. I'm going to break down count by count what the deal is. Now, number one, remember, it is the prosecution that has the burden. There have been countless cases where people have been found not guilty, where at the end of the prosecution presenting their testimony, the defense didn't call a single witness and they're still found not guilty. Why? It's because it's the prosecution's burden, right? It was the prosecution's burden. But Diddy here, oh, he's calling witnesses. The expectation is that it's going to be 2 or 3 weeks. Now, many people have said, oh, where are Diddy's friends? If they were true friends, they would have been here. Where are they? Well, the answer is it's not their turn yet. No, Diddy hasn't had any friends. Y'all, I'm sorry, I gotta take this off. I got a sundress over here in court. I got this blazer on because I got my bosoms out a little bit. But hold on, it's hot. Okay, sorry. I have my blazer on in court. Anyway, so here we are. So, um, so for those people who were saying, where are Kanye's friends? They should have been here. His friends have been nowhere. The friends were not there because the friends are not allowed to both be on the witness list and sit in the courtroom. So that's where the friends are. We're going to see him next week when his side starts. So when his opportunity for testimony starts, that's when I hear it's going to get very star-studded. Drop below. Who do you think is going to come? You think it's going to be a Young Miami? At this point, I don't think it's going to be Kanye, simply because Kanye came here today and was trying to observe testimony. However, if Kanye was in fact a person that Jane, oh, I'm going to start calling her old girl so I don't forget, that old girl had the freak off with or attended the freak off with, he could very easily be a good witness because he would be able to testify, hey, the issue wasn't the freak offs. The issue was she wanted to have more say in how the freak offs were conducted as a defense. So first off, let's talk about the prosecution and the prosecution's burden. Now, number one, the first count, prostitution for transportation. Let me know if you have any questions on the prosecution. Hit that like, hit that subscribe, guys. On the prostitution, the transportation for prostitution charge. That is a charge that I think is going to stick. That charge, he is facing up to 10 years. However, oh, you like my dress? Here's the back of it. Yay. Okay, thank you. He's facing up to 10 years for the prostitution charge. However, he could also get time served. Remember, he's been in that cell since September 16th. So he absolutely, no matter what the penalty is, he's going to get credit for all of the days he's already been there as applied. So it's going to be a matter of, all right, if he is found guilty of the prostitution. It's also important to note there's a big difference between prostitution and S trafficking. The hooker charge, all they have to show is that he paid hookers to perform in 2 states. That's it, guys. It's super easy. That he paid hookers to perform in 2 different states, and that when he paid them, they were able to, that they used that to get there. He doesn't have to show he carried them over his back. He doesn't even need to show, like, they don't need to put into the record receipts. They had those guys testify already that yes, he paid me, and I attended in this city, this city, and this city. Then he had women. He had the 2 victims come on the stand, the 2 S worker victims, allege and say where they paid and coordinated for these guys to go. That's sufficient evidence. Some people are like, well, there's no receipts, there's no that. Look, that is sufficient in that the jury gets to decide, do we believe them? I don't think there's been any dispute whatsoever that those hookers have taken place. Oh my God. Oh, oh my gosh, Kibo. Shame on you. No, what took me so long, honestly, is I was trying to make sure I understood what was going on with the most recent testimony, and I had to run out of the courtroom. Prosecution is not yet rested. They're going to rest on Monday. The current person on the stand, and this is why I feel comfortable giving you this summation. The current person on the stand is Joseph Perez. He is a personal assistant to Diddy. He is now what, the third or fourth personal assistant, fourth, that we've talked to. He was a personal assistant all the way up to the end, all the way up to the day of arrest. Now I understand they are calling him instead of KK. I'm prefacing this, and then I'm going to break down the rest of the counts and what has or hasn't been proven so far. So, what I've already established is the prostitution for transportation has been proven. Let me know if there are any questions. I don't see any way for him to get out of the prostitution charge as of now. Hit that like, guys. We got over 1,000 in the chat. We don't even have 300 likes. Um, but Jonathan Perez is the personal assistant presently on the stand. He's testifying to coordinating the hotel rooms for the freak offs, to obtaining substances for the freak offs, and he is testifying under immunity. That's how we know we're going to get a little, something a little juicy in there. Right now, what they're talking about is apparently um, one of the photographers, Brendan Paul, the one that was the mule, the substance mule, was also apparently a videographer for Diddy. And I believe that's the same Brendan. They just keep saying Brendan. And they previously showed Brendan Paul's photo this morning when this guy was giving testimony. So apparently there was a freak off video of the last witness, Jane, in the video where she's doing it to some hooker, some male hooker, and Diddy is actually in the background. The video was filmed on an iPad, and basically he's giving testimony about how he discovered it, and then KK pulled him to the side and was like, "Don't," because he went directly and told Diddy, and KK was like, "Don't do that. In the future, you always tell me first." Oop! Thank you so much for this super chat. Um, Arwa, let me see. Thank you, thank you. Can I put on this? I'm trying to put on the screen, girl. Will it show? It's not showing. Oh, here we go. Thank you so much for the super chat. All right. The question is, we appreciate your reporting is giving you life. Okay, great. So one of the bombshells for today, or the big surprises, aside from Kanye coming to the courthouse, sitting there for 20 minutes and then getting irritated. I don't know if he got ADD or what, but he's gone. Is that secondly, remember, there's no KK. I think we all were expecting that KK would testify. She's not. And she was subpoenaed. But remember, just because you subpoena someone doesn't mean you have to take their testimony. What it appears that the prosecution has done instead is they are using this gentleman currently on the stand, Jonathan Perez, to testify to KK's role in the enterprise, as well as Diddy, and really bring home and finish up the RICO. So when we get back from lunch, there's going to be about 30 more minutes of testimony from the prosecutor, and then they're going to cross examine him. Right now, there's no super huge bombshells, but it's primarily they're talking about how he coordinated the freak off rooms, set up the hotel rooms. Oh yeah, apparently Diddy loves them a honey pack, y'all. So I can see how those honey packs really work. But apparently for Diddy, they're amazing. So Diddy loves these honey packs, and he would coordinate and buy the honey packs, etc. So part of this testimony is bringing home the RICO. So speaking of RICO, I titled this video, what's the prosecution proven so far or not, and how much further do they have to go? Now, here's the thing. When the prosecution rests, remember, Diddy doesn't have to call a single witness. What they will do at the end of the prosecution resting, which is going to be on Monday, they're going to motion for a directed verdict, meaning that the judge rule that the government hasn't proven what they need to prove it. That always happens. That's just standard, all right? That's standard. They're going to do that. But here, somebody said, "What's a honey pack?" Oh, a honey pack is what men, especially older men, use to help them get it up or stay up to go a long time. Diddy was out these freak offs going all night. That's how he was doing. I was wondering. Sometimes it'd be Cialis, they said, sometimes too. But he was really on those honey pack. If Diddy is guilty, would KK be arrested? She sure could. She sure could. I think KK and her attorneys are taking a huge gamble because the estimation is that if Diddy is found not guilty, that they're not going to try and charge anyone else. Well, I think after what happened with Shine and Diddy back in the day, anyone who's willing to take that risk should probably think twice about it. Um, but going back to the RICO charge, now here's the charge that I think he needs to be the most worried about. The prostitution charge, we already talked about that. I see no way of him getting out of it. Instead, what I anticipate is that argument that if he's found guilty of that, to the judge, let's just give him time served. But number two, oh, we got another super chat. Hold on. Thank you so much. Sean says, thank you for all the hard work and expertise and explaining the law during the case. Thank you, Sean. Truly appreciate it. Um, with the RICO, I want to make sure there's some myths about the RICO and what needs to be proven. Yes, they need to prove it's an enterprise, but that's been done. Checked off. Literally, the guy on the stand today, he said it was called Sean Combs Enterprises. It's known that it's an enterprise. So we need an enterprise and you need people that are working together within the enterprise. Those are the staff members. So the question is solely, were they committing any offenses? And yes, there were staff members who were. There is a misnomer. People think, oh, but it wasn't for profit. It does not have to be. They don't have to be working for profit. They just have to be working for a common goal. And guess what the indictment says? The indictment lists multiple common goals. They only need one. But one of the indictment common goals that they're seeking to prove up is that they were working together to help satisfy Diddy's sexual desires. Well, that's what today's testimony that's talking about setting up the freak offs and this, that, and the third, that goes to that. That was one of the goals. In addition, another goal was to protect his brand, his power within the industry, and kind of the respect that he had throughout it. So that went to, for example, the alleged bribery of making that hotel beatdown tape go away, because obviously brands, it would ruin his brand and brands would not want to do business with him. So with the RICO, it does appear that the RICO is proven. And I want to make sure, I want to answer some questions regarding that RICO stuff. Ooh, ooh, ooh. Thank you so much for the super chat. Oh, we got another one from, yep. Thank you. I look gorgeous. I'm so much fun. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Appreciate you guys. Um, yeah, so with the RICO, also with RICO, they only have to prove, remember, two of the eight offenses. And here's the interesting thing that I confirmed as well. The jurors themselves, we know there has to be a unanimous verdict, but it's a unanimous verdict, number one, on each separate thing. So they could decide Jane was not trafficked, but Cassie was trafficked. Or they could decide none of the people were trafficked, but there was prostitution. Or they could decide that there was RICO. So, and then within RICO, the jurors don't even have to agree which of the two offenses were actually committed. So, for example, if one juror believes, remember there's eight offenses, believes that someone was trafficked, Cassie or the other lady, either one of them. So let's say one of the people said, yeah, there was trafficking. And the other says, I don't think there was trafficking, but I do think there was prostitution. And I do see bribery. Two, whichever, as long as a juror finds that they see that two of those eight were committed, then that satisfies the RICO. Also, remember, they don't have to show that this was done for profit. And more than that, they do not. The prosecution does not have to show that any co-conspirator was also charged. Absolutely not. And more than that, the fact that no other co-conspirator was charged in this cannot be used against the prosecution. The jury is not allowed to say, well, but he's the only one charged. I don't want to see RICO here. Can't do that. And by RICO, it's actually racketeering. That's the other thing. Racketeering is so much easier to prove because you don't have to show that Diddy did a thing. You don't actually have to show that he did the arson. There just has to be reasonable doubt that someone within the enterprise, someone that Diddy hired, set that boy's car on fire. And there can be reasonable doubt. It could be through circumstantial evidence, whatever. But let's go back to the eight real quick. The eight where there has been strong evidence or more evidence of, number one was the prostitution. These are the eight racketeering underlying offenses, prostitution, substance distribution, because the substances were used both at freak-offs but other social events that were obtained by staff. Um, doesn't he need just one juror to walk out? Not walk out, but uh, mistrial. Was this a fair trial? Yes, I feel like it's been a fair trial. It's really crazy. Jazane Maxwell, or her name is, went down. Right, the other guy, yeah, because he passed away. Wow, this is a setup by the feds. Uh oh. Um, that's my legal bestie. Is making make sense on here? It says, wow, yeah, prostitution is part of the RICO. Yes, it is. So him buying SEX can have his companies taken from him. Correct, correct, correct. Also, keep this in mind. If the government seizes the assets, if he is later pardoned, it doesn't mean he gets the assets back. It means there's a chance the government could still keep the assets. It just depends on how far along the government is with respect to seizing those assets. But like if at the end of the orange man in office, at the end of his office term, he's like, yeah, I want to pardon this guy. If his assets have already been taken, the government does not have to give those back. It really just varies. But of those eight, going back, the arson I think was a weaker. I could see where a jury member may say, "Oh, I don't feel like the arson, coordination of the arson, agreement." Remember, it's just conspiracy. It's just conspiracy. They don't have to prove that he himself did the arson. But I could see how a juror could say, maybe not there. The kidnapping. I'm going to say the kidnapping could still be on the fence. Perhaps all 12 don't agree that Capricorn Clark was kidnapped because she did show up to work on Monday. I feel she was kidnapped, but I'm not on the jury. But what I do think their strongest evidence of is bribery. Bribery is in the offer and bribery is in the ask. So the minute that Diddy or one of his staff members asked those hotel workers to get rid of that video, that was the bribery, and that was also where they tampered with witnesses. That's two offenses. We've got prostitution, bribery, tampering with witnesses. Substance distribution, we spoke on that. The arson, I could see where a juror would be like, I don't know about that. Kidnapping, I said the same thing there. Arson, kidnapping. Oh, forced labor. Um, I think they could have done a stronger job on the forced labor because I don't feel like that information was very organized, but I believe that's where the summary witness is going to come in. So there's a summation witness. She's going to testify on Monday. She is a paralegal for the U.S. Attorney's Office. And what she's going to do is she's got like a little chart. She's got documents that are going to help summarize literally all the evidence. Now, hopefully there'll be like a section that says forced labor. These are the witnesses that testified to elements of forced labor. Because part of the challenge is sitting there listening to testimony and being like, where are they going with this? What is this going towards supporting? Well, that's what this summation witness is going to help with. Um, yes, running a criminal. And remember, it's not running a criminal enterprise, it's running an enterprise that sometimes does things to assist you that are illegal. So the enterprise itself doesn't have to be criminal. In fact, most enterprises are totally legal via racketeering. Um, if he didn't give the cash to the hookers directly, is it still prostitute? Yeah, it doesn't matter who gives it to him. Because remember, this is racketeering, conspiracy. All he has to do is show that he worked with others. So he gives the money to one of his girlfriends pays the hookers. That's the conspiracy. Now, if they would have said racketeering straight up, that's where it'd be like, oh, well, they do need to prove this. And this is just conspiracy. This is how come R. Kelly was convicted all by his lonesome. No co-conspirators were named. All right. Hey, we got Mona John. I hope these arrests get things in order. Girl, I hear ya. I hear ya. Oh, and we got another super sticker. What happens to the transferred property? Oh, great question. The transferred property. So if he is convicted and they seize his assets, they just go up for auction. So literally, there are like certain rappers in town, like in Houston and stuff like that, that were convicted of things or stuff like that, and they have like flashy cars. You can actually go to the federal auction and bid on their cars. So all his stuff, his house will go up for auction. They will also seize money and create a fund for his victims. Y'all, this is not a fun fact because this is a serious matter. But remember how, and then I'm going to finalize by just talking about the S trafficking charges and the extent to which that has or hasn't been proven, or my thoughts there. But speaking of seizing the assets in the property, they're going to sell the assets, they're going to auction the assets, they're actually going to keep some of the money, they're going to have it in a fund or what have you. for accessible to the victims that have pending lawsuits to make sure that there's money for them to get paid, after the asset forfeiture, this, that, and the third. Well, remember, when Jane was on the stand, I'm gonna call her old girl. We know what we're talking about. When old girl was on the stand, one of the things that I did think was strong about her testimony was the fact that she, of all the people that have taken the stand, has not sued him, was not suing him. There was nothing pending in litigation. And then this morning, y'all, I woke up and I was like, "Ooh, I got to tell the jury. I got to tell my viewers." Yes, she has no, and she said testify. She's got no current case against him. None of that. However, if Diddy is convicted of S trafficking her, she automatically wins her civil case. She can then file, she don't have one right now, but she could file one and automatically wins. Here's why. Because the standard in criminal court is so much higher, right? It's beyond a reasonable doubt for the criminal S trafficking charge. There is also a civil S trafficking charge. Um, and under that civil charge, as trafficking and RICO, actually, and RICO, under that civil charge, if he's convicted in the other, she literally could just submit that to the judge. The judge must give credence to the guilty verdict because it's the same facts, it's the same, all of that. As a result, the only question in court, if she were to file a civil and he were to be convicted of her, it has to be of her as trafficking. The only question is how much. So she could hire a lawyer and effectively become a millionaire from her testimony. But if and only if Diddy is convicted. So for some people asking what's her incentive, I don't know that she thought that through. I'm not saying that, and I'm not saying that's why she got up there and took the stand. But I did find that to be an interesting fact that I wanted to make sure you guys were aware of. Here we go. Because I felt like it was a little bit of an unusual kind of thing. Thank you for joining us. Yes, hit that like as you do. This live won't age well. Okay. Don't be shocked when he still walks. Okay, I won't. Andre, yeah. For those people who say that, my only question is how does he get out of the prostitution charge? I don't see how he doesn't get charged with can anyone help me with that? I'm not being funny. Can anyone help me understand how he can get out? She most definitely would. Yeah. If Jane won millions, she would be singing and laughing. Well, having a baby may not make her a millionaire, but being trafficked might. Oh boy. I should reach out. Oops, sorry. What does it say? I should reach out. What? Come on. Oh, no, it's not going up. There we go. I don't know why that's looking like it's looking. There we go. If Jane won million, 11 year just thank you. Everybody doesn't think the same. The prostitution charge is going to land him a year or two time served. It sure could. But to me, walks means not convicted of anything, but it certainly could be because the prostitution is only going to go, I feel like, one of two ways. It'll get him a time served, or there's a chance the judge might choose to give him the most, feeling like, oh, well, he got off of this other stuff. So we're going to sock it to him in this one other area. Sometimes that happens. However, this judge actually seems really, really fair. So I can't really see that judge doing this. I could see if he gets sentenced for just the prostitution, that this judge is going to sentence him only for prostitution. And I would not be surprised if he gets a time served. Like the video, thank you. He was not the only one. Let me see. What if Diddy transfers property to family members? Yeah, it doesn't matter. They're already going to come after a property in his mother's name. Actually, in court, they had his CFO testify, and the CFO put on the screen and showed different wires to Mrs. Combs' entities. So it doesn't matter whose name it's in. The question is, where did the money originate? And if it originated from the enterprise, they can take it. They can take the daughter's trust funds. They can take the daughter's college funds. They can take the son's trust funds or college fund. Because the issue is where did the money originate, not where is it now or whose name is it under? Because that's exactly what historically criminals do is they put stuff in other people's names. Yeah, prostitution, I could see. I would agree totally, Edie. Prostitution is the strongest. I'm there. If Jane gets a lot of money, Will she owe her baby daddy child support? Actually, I think she's been a prop. She may owe him because she hasn't been claiming her rent. So you can't collect rent and not, number one, you got to pay taxes on it. Oh, you better believe her state is coming after her, honey. That's $150,000. What is it? $120,000 of annual income that she has not been paying taxes on, unless she's been paying taxes on it. I'm going to assume most people don't pay taxes on money you get as rent. And it does not matter, it doesn't matter that he test or that the testimony said he paid it just direct to her landlord. That was a benefit for you. In the same way, y'all, that the Republicans, the government, has ruled that for those people, like if your job gives you student loan forgiveness, then you actually have to pay taxes on that part of your student loan money that's forgiven. It's because anything of value, valued over 12,000, you got to pay taxes for it. So she'll be on the hook for that. But then also with her kid's father, he could go back and say, wait a minute, she underreported her income. And they are in a state where they put together both people's income and like it's in a cup, right? And then that total is supposed to equal 100%. And then they split it in half so that you know, the money's equalized. Anyway, the more money a parent makes, the less child support they're entitled to. So I wouldn't be surprised if her baby daddy goes to court and tries to get what's called an overage, saying, hey, he's been paying too much, get some of that money back and get custody because he's going for custody for sure. Um, with great power comes great responsibility. That is true. My daughter has never paid taxes on student loans or grant money. I'm not talking about student loan money. I'm talking about if you go and you work for Google, and as part of your compensation package, because this is an important distinction. Thank you for letting us know, T. Hudson. If you go work for Google, and a part of your Google compensation package is that Google says, we'll pay your student loan payments. Let's say that payment is $1,000 a month. At the end of the year, that's 12K. It's considered 12K of additional income that you got from your job. So whatever your regular salary is, add 12K to that and you're supposed to pay taxes on that. Sometimes the government will just tax you because it's in the same way as like if you have a credit card company and that credit card company writes off a debt, you're supposed to pay taxes on that written off debt. That's what I'm saying. What does conviction charges? Hold on a second. Cancellation of debts are taxable. That's right. Thank you. That's a form that's used. What conviction charges would cause Diddy to lose the assets? Any of them in this case. Any of them. The prostitution, he'd lose the least amount, right? Because they would only be able to trace the money to the prostitution. But the one that's the biggest worry would be the RICO. The RICO, which is correction, it's actually racketeering. It's not RICO. Here it's racketeering conspiracy. If he gets convicted of the racketeering conspiracy, that's where they're gonna go back because and take everything from the enterprises. That is the true fear. That prostitution charge, yeah, they might be able to take a little bit, but they had to link it to the prostitution. You didn't pay them hookers that much. You didn't pay them hookers that much at all. So, not ideally, but in the end, if he's only found guilty of prostitution, that's why that would be a minor issue for him as compared to the other stuff, the S trafficking and the other. And I'll have to say, thirdly and finally, I did not analyze the S trafficking, but what I will say is it looks like that one could go 50-50. I do think of the two victims, victim one and two, that took the stand, the first and second, victim one is much more likely to get a conviction across the board with getting 12 people to agree that she was trafficked is far more likely. If there's not a guilty for her, there definitely won't be a guilty for victim two. There definitely won't. And I wouldn't be surprised if it's a hung jury on one or both of them. Um, just because of the law. And I'll have to say, because again, I've said before, but victim two, I think the force that they claimed, victim two was trafficked by force. The force was when she started the fight, the last 3 months of the relationship. The problem you got there is if you're saying this force made her do it, well, why was she doing it the prior 2 years before he ever laid a hand on her? And he never laid a hand on her thereafter. Secondly, the trafficking by fraud is a lack of quality time. Well, she never codified how much quality time would not be coercion. And there was testimony that there were nights where they spent time together and did not have freak offs. Also, there was testimony that she did not start the freak offs until 2 years in. So the question becomes, what were you doing before? And also, with respect to the financial coercion, testimony was elicited that she makes 10K a month. She makes more than 10K. She makes more than the allowance he gives her on OnlyFans. And then on her best month, she made $50,000 that month. So I think there would be jurors. Remember, we've got an Amazon warehouse worker and others who would have difficulty seeing that financial coercion rising to the level. I think it would be hard. It's going to be hard to get 12 of these people in there to see that financial coercion rising to that level. All right, let's see what we got here. All right, Evanina, well, thank you. Sending love from ATL. Thank you for being so down to earth. Take a breath. I think I knew you through my late ex. Oh yeah, I do know a Myron, but I don't know which Myron is your Myron. Hit that like. Yes, y'all hit that like. I really appreciate that. Let's see. Can I put this on the screen here? Yes, yes, yes. Oh, we got another question. Hold on. Hold on. There we go. Okay, this is important. Ooh, thank you, Ebony. All right, we have another question. Hold on. I love y'all's questions. All right. Oh, thank you, Mark. Mark Lumpkin. Thank you for the super chat. I really appreciate it. JP has asked if significant assets, if significance are in say Cook Islands Trust, it's beyond U.S. jurisdiction. The rich patronize those schemes. He didn't get caught lacking. Too shrewd of a man. Yeah. So American law still says it doesn't matter where your stuff is, you're supposed to give it. So they could always increase his punishment, increase his penalty. So you don't want to play with that stuff. So yeah. So you're right. Technically, it's outside. They can't just easily seize that account. But if they find it, and they could draft orders to seize it. And if he in any way impedes that, they could increase his sentence or add another charge. All right, what do we have here? This is Janae. If the house isn't in her name, as in the mom's name, and Diddy paid the landlord. Oh no, this is victim. If the house isn't in her name and Diddy paid the landlord directly, then could she argue she technically never received it? Yes, she can argue that. But let me tell you, the state of California, where this property was located, that's not me outing. That's what they said in court. They do not play. Let me tell you something. I have a homeboy who lived in California for 6 weeks. For 6 weeks, he paid for a California team in basketball. Then he got traded to Europe. He went and played in Europe for like over a year, year and a half. He was actually from Florida, where he has his residence. The entire year that he played in whatever other foreign country, the state of California was like, nope, you owe us taxes because you bought your baby mama house in California, so you need to pay us taxes. I say that to say here, number one, the lease was in her name. They testified to that. So the lease had her name, but the money was coming from his. So that's going to be her challenge with not claiming that as rent. And also, because you best believe Diddy and Diddy's accountants are getting a tax deduction for that some type of way. Whether it's they're claiming that the victim was like an employee, we would have, if that was the case, if they were getting a tax deduction on her, that would have been submitted into evidence. Well, assuming that the prosecution subpoenaed those documents. But I definitely believe Diddy's entity was probably going to find a way to deduct it. And therefore, she would have actually needed to. We'll see. So I don't wish IRS woes on nobody, but that is definitely a challenge. Oh, thank you so much, Leslie. I really appreciate it. All right, guys, I'm going back into the courtroom. I'll see you guys this afternoon for a summary wrap up. Hit that like, hit that subscribe, and share this on Facebook or other entities. Thanks so much. I appreciate it. Bye, y'all.